All right, today I'm going to answer a question, the most often asked question that I get. How do you make money as an author? And I understand why people ask this question. I mean, I think we all want to make money. That's sort of a universal human condition. You know, we need money to live, especially if we're adults, and we want to have money to be able to buy things, being able to afford rent, being able to afford groceries, being able to afford all of those things is really helpful. And so the question of how to make money, especially as an author, is, I think, very pertinent. And considering that I have made money as an author, people ask me this a lot. So before we get into it, though, I think it's important to understand qualifications. When you get advice from somebody, it's important to understand if they're qualified to give you the advice and how qualified they are to give you that advice. So here are my qualifications. I've been a full-time author since 2021. I could have been a full-time author a year before that in 2020, but 2020 was 2020. There was a whole worldwide pandemic thing, and I didn't think that that was a good time to quit my full-time job and strike out on my own with this whole, trying to sell people books thing. But in 2021, I did go full-time, and I've been doing it ever since. More importantly, I've managed to double my top-line revenue year over year for the past 5 years. I've been earning money as an author for a good amount of time. Another question I often get is, can you actually make enough money as an author? And I'm very confident in telling you that yes, you can. I've sold over 1 million copies of books in the last 5 years. I have also had over 150 million page reads on KU. That's actually not counting other sources of revenue that I have access to as an author, which we'll get into in a little bit. So being an author can be very lucrative. However, making the transition from not selling books to selling books is hard. It's really hard. And unless you understand the mechanics behind it, it's really easy to just get lost in a sea of information given to you by people who don't have any qualification to be giving you information. Everything I'm about to share with you, I learned through hard work, experience, or finding people who are further ahead of me and asking them their secrets, how they did it. And so what I'm going to share with you is available from other sources. It's not like I have any particular unique secret that's going to magically unlock all of this for you. I just applied the information that I learned in a very particular way, and it's that particular way that I want to share with you. Now, a little bit of a caveat before we get into this, and this is going to be a longer video, so buckle up. If you do stick around to the end of the video, I have a step-by-step model that you can use that I had used when I was getting started. But you definitely don't want to skip the parts in the middle of this video because they are truly the key to how all of this works. So with that said, let's get started. Books sell books. I will preach this until I die. The most important thing you can do as an author is write another book. However, there are a few vitally important pieces that need to exist or be in place before you can actually take advantage of this idea that books sell books. And the first one is one that we just, as authors, don't talk about a lot. And I understand why. It can sometimes feel a little bit mean to us, or it gets really awkward. But we're going to have this conversation. We're going to have the awkward conversation because it's so vital to actually understanding how to make money as an author. I need to take a moment to separate writers into two groups. There are writers who write because they want to write. Writers who want to express themselves. They want to communicate a story. And then there are writers who write because they want to make money. They want to sell books to an audience. And I think in every writer, there's a little bit of both, and maybe even different amounts of both. If you're a writer that just wants to write books, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're an author who wants to sell books, then there are certain things that are required of you, that you must do. And the first is understand the concept of product market fit. The best way to understand this is if somebody has an object to sell and nobody wants that object, they cannot sell it. On the other hand, if somebody has an object to sell and everybody wants it, they will be sold out before you can blink. As creatives, we often think to ourselves, my art is good, people should instinctively want it. People should naturally want it. And that is not how marketing or the economy or really anything having to do with sales works. People don't want stuff because you think it's good. People want stuff because they think it's good. And that's where product market fit comes in. See, if you have a book that you think is great, but nobody else thinks is great, it's not going to sell. Sorry. On the other hand, if you have a book that you think is not really that great, but everybody else thinks it's great, guess what? It's going to sell. It's really hard as a creative to make something and then also acknowledge that our opinion about our own art is the least important when it comes to selling. Again, I don't want to be mean, but I think that this is just something that needs to be said. This is the brutally honest truth. Our opinions about our art, when it comes to selling things, are the least important. The only opinions that actually matter are the opinions of customers. Critics don't matter. Other authors don't matter. We don't matter. Only the people who are going to buy the book matter. That's it. And so understanding how to position your content so that it matches what somebody else wants, that is product market fit. I've been able to sell as many books as I've sold over the last 5 years because I understood this concept. I understood that if I wanted people to buy what I sell, they had to like it. Not me, they had to like it. Now, if I didn't like it, I wouldn't keep writing it, obviously. And so finding something that I like that matches something that they like is the optimal product market fit. That is the absolute best place you can be. Writing something that you want to write that other people really want to read. Now, there is a practice called writing to market that a lot of authors espouse, where they'll go and they'll look for genres that are really hot, genres where people really are buying heavily, and then they'll try to write a book in that genre because they want to sell books. Now, this is a strategy that works. However, I don't think it works well. And the reason it doesn't work well is because eventually our creative soul rebels. It says, I don't want to write this. Or we just rush it out and we don't put proper thought or energy into it, and the readers can tell. So if we just write to market, we'll start to develop a reputation for putting out bad books. On the other hand, if you can find something that you love writing and that your customer loves buying, that is a match made in heaven, because you can pump out as much content as you want and they will buy all of it. And this brings us to the second super important principle for selling books, and that is leverage. What is it that you can do that can have a magnified effect? If you were writing all of your books by hand, then you would write the book and then you would sell it to somebody and that would be it. A one-to-one exchange. You did the work, they got the book, you got their money, but you can't then sell it again. There is no leverage in that equation. On the other hand, I can write a book, upload it to Amazon to sell as an ebook, and then any number of people who have access to Amazon and know about my book can buy it. So I do the work once, and I get paid over and over and over and over again. That is a leveraged activity. If you want to sell books, really if you want to sell anything, then understanding that equation, understanding leverage, is super important. If you really like writing about, say, steampunk, and you think this is a great genre to write in. I love writing in steampunk. I love steampunk. There is an audience for steampunk. However, the audience for steampunk is small. And so no matter how many books you write in the steampunk genre, the absolute leverage that you can get is capped. On the other hand, if you are writing romance, the audience for that is unbelievably huge and growing all of the time, which means that when you write a book and start selling it in a romance genre, your absolute leverage is way higher. It is theoretically infinite because there are new people coming into that genre all of the time. Now, it's a little bit unfair, I understand, to put romance as a complete category against steampunk, because steampunk is obviously a small subcategory and romance is a just gigantic super category. But even if we were to say something like fantasy romance or epic fantasy with romance, as soon as you add the with romance part, you're expanding your genre incredibly. And you could even do it if you wanted to write steampunk. Victorian romance with steampunk elements is going to sell way, way better than a steampunk fantasy with a little bit of romance. I hope you're starting to see what I'm doing here. Leverage is an incredibly important thing because it allows us to multiply our efforts. And when we're examining the landscape of where we're going to write, we need to be thinking about what has leverage and what the absolute cap of that leverage is. Because we're going to be gathering all of these people who are buying our books, and we're going to be putting them into a community, and we're going to be engaging with them. And that brings us to the third super important thing, which is audience management. A lot of authors seem to have this idea that you can just put a book out and then some people will buy it, and then later you'll put another book out and those people and some other people might buy that, and then you just keep doing that. And you can do it that way. However, readers want a place to belong. They want a place to engage. And if you give them a world that they love, they'll want to engage around that world. And so developing ways for them to engage with you and developing ways, even more importantly, for them to engage with each other is vitally important. The stronger your author community, the faster it will ultimately grow and the larger it will become. This is the fandom phenomenon. And we're seeing it in entertainment and in all sorts of other things across the world. It's a fairly recent phenomenon because we've only had the ability to congregate in groups online for a little while. But the fact that we can means that audience management has become an integral part of the author career. All right, so I've given you some high-level concepts, but now I'd like to get really practical. I want to give you the step-by-step process that I used to start making money as an author. The first thing I did is I picked a genre. I knew I wanted to write fantasy. It was just a matter of what kind of fantasy. I had been really enjoying lit RPG, and so that was the genre I picked. I then picked the 10 top books in lit RPG, and I read all of them. In fact, I read more than just the top 10. I read quite a few more than just the top 10. But I think 10 is probably enough. And once I had read through them, I started making notes. I started writing down what it was that I loved about those books. I made a list for every single one of the books. Here are the top 10 to 15 things that I really enjoyed about this book. Here are the things I didn't enjoy about this book. And then I compared all of those lists to each other. I started examining which tropes I really enjoyed and tried to figure out why I enjoyed them. And then also which tropes I didn't enjoy that I might want to avoid. Once I had narrowed it down, I picked the top 3 tropes that emerged on my list because those are the reasons that I enjoyed lit RPG so much. And if I enjoy those things, there are probably other people who enjoy those things. Once I had done that, I wrote a book around those tropes. Using those tropes as guidelines, I wrote my own version of those stories. Now remember, I was approaching this as a reader, not as a writer. I didn't start with, what cool story do I want to tell? I started with, what do I like about this genre? Because as a reader, identifying what I like about this genre, there are going to be other readers who like the same or similar things. That's automatically starting to determine product market fit. But then I took it a step further. Once I had my book done, I went out and I tested it. I started putting it on Royal Road. I started putting it on Wattpad. There are a bunch of other websites that you can use as an amateur to try posting your work. And I just checked for traction. And sometimes people would comment, and anytime they commented, I would immediately message them and I would say, thank you so much for commenting. It's a real encouragement to me. I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind, what is one thing you think that I could improve in this story? That way I was getting a lot of feedback. And I even did that for people who left me mean comments. And I said, hey, what is one thing I can do to improve? And then I tried to incorporate the feedback that I was getting into the books that I was writing. Now, it is very important. It is incredibly important to say that you don't have to listen to what people say online. You don't. But if you don't get feedback on your writing, it is going to be incredibly hard to get that product market fit. And the tricky thing is that you don't want feedback from an editor. You don't want somebody who is a professional editor to be giving you this specific feedback. They can give you feedback on craft, but they can't give you feedback on what the market wants. Because what the market wants is ever changing. It's ever evolving. And unless you're actually interfacing directly with readers, it's impossible to know what they specifically want. The reason that looking at the top 10 books in a genre is going to be helpful is because people vote with their dollars. And so understanding which books are the best and why people like them or what the tropes are that are common among all of them, that are attractive, that's going to give you a clear indication of what people are voting for. Now, once you have tested your material, like I did, it's time to put a cover on it. It's time to get a blurb. It's time to get the interior formatted. And you can either do that yourself or you can go and you can get somebody else to do it. For a cover, I would really recommend not doing it yourself. I would really recommend going to Fiverr, paying somebody like $50 and getting a great cover. In fact, if you're looking for a cover, I'd love to send you to the person on Fiverr who did my covers. I'll put a link in the description. Les was fantastic. She did all 10 covers for the Titan series. Loved them. I still use them to this day, and she's fantastic to work with. So I'll put the link down in the description. You can go check her out. All right, so now you have your book. You've market tested it. You have your cover. You know that people like it. You've done some rewriting to get some of the tropes that were annoying out, and you've put in some new tropes. You have a book. You're ready to go. So what do you do? Now you do the hardest thing. You wait. And while you wait, you go and you join groups where people talk about books like yours. I think that all of us as authors really do have this desire to be unique and to have written something special. But in reality, there are groups online where people talk about books that are like the book you wrote. They might not be the same in terms of the plot. In fact, hopefully they aren't. Like, you should write your own plots. But they probably talk about the tropes that you use in your book. And that's what I did. I went and I joined a bunch of Facebook groups. I went and I joined some Reddit groups. I went and I talked to the people in these groups. I engaged with them, not as somebody who's coming to sell something, but just as a fan, as somebody who really loves these sorts of books with these tropes. Again, product market fit. And the reason it's so important to do this is because these are the people who will not only take a chance on you, but will then tell their friends who also happen to like the same books that they like if they think your book is good. This is the ultimate version of leverage. Having somebody else sell your book for you is a perfect example of leverage. And plus, it's free to join most of these groups. In fact, if there's a group that is paid to join, you don't want to join it. The point is to find where the fans congregate and is to go and join them there because you're a fan as well. Now, if you're just writing to market, then it's incredibly hard to do this because you're not actually a fan. You don't actually necessarily like the thing you're writing. And people can tell. But if you've been following this system, then you are a fan. You do like this genre. You do like the tropes that the top books have. And you are making your own version of that same thing. Which means that it's highly likely that the people who like these tropes are going to like your book. Once you've joined these groups and once you've engaged with them for a little while, I would recommend a couple of months, then it's time to put your book up. You can do that through Amazon KDP, which is what I did. You can do that through a publisher, which is not what I did at first, but I eventually did with later series. But regardless of how you do it, you need to get it into a place where people can buy. And I recommend Amazon. In the author community, Amazon is like the big bad wolf, and rightly so. I think that there are a lot of concerns with having one company control a market so tightly, and Amazon has the book market locked down. No matter what anybody tells you, Amazon is making people way more money than anybody else, selling way more books. It's where readers are. It's where indie authors can actually make a living. And so regardless of your feelings about Amazon, and I've got some pretty spicy feelings about them, it's really the only place that you can truly make money. Though if you disagree with that, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. But once you've put your book up, probably on Amazon, it's time to then start telling those groups that you have joined and been a member of and been engaging with and been active in about your book. And if you've done this right, if you've gotten your product market fit, if you've been taking these leveraged actions, then soon you're going to start getting a following. You're going to start getting customers who like the tropes that you have in your book and want more. Which brings us back to books sell books. What do you do once you've started to get some customers? You don't go and blow all of your money advertising your book. No. You just do it all again. You write another book, doubling down on the tropes that you enjoyed and that other people are resonating with. And then you do it again and again and again. Each time growing your audience, each time expanding your reach, and each time selling more books. And that, friends, is how you sell 1 million books online.